Welcome to the Fee for Service Dentist Podcast. Dr. Sonny Spira. Today, our guest, Melinda Heryford. And she is a former dental assistant who has a business, and she helps a lot of dentists and helps their teams called the Proven Prime System. And we're going to talk and we're going to dig deep. She's going to actually grind me a little bit, so I'm on the hot seat, but it's more to emphasize in our key points today are the components of a successful or healthy, hopefully both healthy and successful fee-for-service practice. I think you'll enjoy it, and you'll probably find out a lot of weak points in our my systems anyway. So if you appreciate, like the show, share it with your friends, like it, share it with your friends, pass it on. That's how we grow. If you don't like it, please contact me, sonnyspira@gmail.com. As always, if you want to be a guest or you have some interesting things you want to talk about, love to have you. As before, and as happened for the last 3 years now, Kettenbach Dental is our sponsor, and they are excited to announce the first major advancement in fluoride varnish treatments, which does not use alcohol or resin. Instead, patients will want this new treatment with muco-adhesive dimethicone gel, which leaves their teeth feeling silky smooth like the Zohan. No more grit. Contact Kettenbach today for more details and do more varnishes that patients will appreciate. 877-532-2123 or kettenbachusa.com. Enjoy the show, folks. Love doing it. Take care.
My name is Drew Burns, and I'm a part of a small group of dentists who believe something crazy. We believe that the standard of care is just not good enough. We demand the best of ourselves and the best for our patients. We believe that the best way? No, the only way to practice dentistry is on our own terms. If you ask the dental consultants or the corporate CEOs, they tell you that what we're doing isn't smart, that fee-for-service dentistry is dead, and that the golden age of dentistry is over. Yet, while others focus on profits first, we focus on the patient first. And yet our offices are some of the most profitable in the entire country because we invest in ourselves and we are doing things right. It's our name on the door and it's our reputation on the line. My name is Drew Burns and I am a fee-for-service dentist. This is the Fee-for-Service Dentist Podcast, and these are our stories.
Welcome to the Fee-for-Service Dentist Podcast. Dr. Sonny Spira. Today, our guest is Melinda Heryford. Did I say that right?
You did. You got that right. That's perfect.
Oh
Silent Y.
All right. Well, I every now and then a blind squirrel finds a nut. We're good. All right. So we're going to talk. She is a person with a company and a business that helps a lot of different dentists in a lot of different ways. Let me give you a little bit of her background. Her team and her help dentist practice owners grow their practice with systems that reduce redundancy in their operations, improve their productivity, and increase patient satisfaction. We also work with dental office managers and their teams to get them performing to their best on a daily basis. Through their unique approach, the Proven Prime System, they access unique practice strengths and match them to a personalized blueprint pathway that gets you and your team to the next level of production, collection, and treatment acceptance. This process has helped clients go from a healthy 20% to an exceptional 68% in these areas. I'll say that's exceptional. As a result, our clients share their more focused, see more commitment in their team, and ultimately enjoy more profitable, rewarding practice. They value the meaningful impact that they make in dentistry, transforming lives by fostering dental health and creating confident smiles. We take pleasure in collaborating with dedicated practitioners who strive for success, partnering with passionate dental owners, leading both experienced and new team members, supporting dental practice staff who are diligently working as individuals, supporting the promise to unite and function as a high-performing team. Please welcome Mary. How are we doing today?
I'm good, Sonny. How are you doing?
I'm doing great.
You know, the private fee-for-service practice. Don't you love it? You've been specializing in this for how many years now?
Oh, ever since I got out of dental school, I don't
Yeah.
really know. I don't really know another way. I
Yeah.
was associate in a practice, and that's how they did things. And then when I got on my own, I bought a practice, and that's how he was doing it. And we've just kept it rolling. And
Yeah.
very fortunate. I think the folks in our area have always worked hard at trying to make sure that their dentists in the society and stuff were informed and made decisions from knowledge, not fear.
Mm-hmm.
And they kind of made sure that the information was disseminated properly and it wasn't a hunt and peck and kill and capture and individual, the old practitioners of practicing in their caves, right? And
Yep.
then they come in and scare you and tell you you're going to go out of business because everyone's going to sign up and et cetera, et cetera. And they also it was really a knowledge base. What's the least favored nations clause? What's some of these things that you're signing on? Understand what you're signing. And
Yeah.
a lot of people had, elected not to at the time. So I think it's a normal part of practice in our area.
Yeah, I love it that it is because it's made it, straightforward for you. It isn't always straightforward.
Right.
When these doctors are coming out of school and buying practices and they're not knowledgeable about running a practice, it really is a vulnerable spot. Or when you're not
Right.
busy enough, when you're not busy enough, I think it puts you in a vulnerable spot of like, should I take plans? Should I do these things? And you know, I've been in dentistry a long, long time, and insurance was a wasn't even part of dentistry years ago. Wasn't even a part of it, and so I feel like we're coming full circle in what we're focused on. In that we now get this golden opportunity to like focus on the dentistry and the patient again,
Yeah, like you were
right?
taught in school. It's just like you were taught in school. You have a direct
Exactly.
relationship between the doctor and the patient. You present their treatment options. You present the consequences of treatment, of non-treatment, and they make the decision. Not you're sitting there talking to a middleman who then filters it to the person. Now, granted, insurance in our office still has a role, still has a seat, at the table, but it's still a direct relationship for us and the patient. And many people will use that insurance crutch
Yep.
and we'll say, yeah, we'll help you, but this is really you're going to be your decision. And it
Well,
was really evident during COVID when COVID came around. Oh no, well, we trust you, you know, because now in our area, as nice as I said it was, we've gotten, a bunch of the chains and the clinics and the
uh-huh.
different type of practices have kind of rolled into town. And then there's some other people that are going to try to, capitalize or, um, monopolize the market, so to speak.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
but there's
So
still a pretty good segment.
a little different factor externally, right? For you, a little different factor than you've had. And I do think you said something really important, which is, it starts with our relationship with the patient, with the conditions that we're seeing, and how do we focus in on that with the patient so that they can actually make a choice for themselves about their own health,
Right.
independent of whether they have coverage or not. And I love that idea. I, I have some new clients currently, and there is this focus on insurance, right? Like, well, our patients are really insurance dependent. And, I think that I see that through a different lens, which is I think there are things that our team and our doctors naturally bring into the discussion that probably don't need to be there. So, this is one of those things where really encouraging your audience and the doctors to take a step back and really look at what it is that they're saying at chairside and how are they setting it up so that it can be just about the treatment, right? That we can help them as a courtesy for sure, maximize any benefit that they have. It's a second thought. It's a coupon. It's a second thought. We can
Yeah.
help them with that, but that's not the first thought. The first thought is where are you with your health,
Yeah.
and where do you want to be with your health, and how do you, how that conversation that's so crucial. And, it's just fascinating to me because I think in dentistry, we're really good and trained. You can reflect back on when you were coming out of school, you could read x-rays and you could tell people what was wrong, right? Easily, like that piece. And when I think about what makes the biggest difference is that we take it a step further than that. That it's really also how do we connect those conditions to the patient, right? How do we do that? So I mean, I feel like it wasn't like you're ready made. So, when you think about how you've evolved because you've been practicing a long time, what what do you think made the difference so that you could actually start to include the patient in that conversation?
Well, for me, it was the help from my mentor and the doc I was working for, and it was the model. I do think you made a really interesting comment. You'd said about insurance dependent. We have a number of patients that are absolutely insurance dependent, but it's a different between insurance driven.
Yeah.
Insurance driven versus insurance dependent, I think, are two different animals. And insurance driven is not going to really work typically because that's all they're going to talk about, and they're going to
Yep.
put that as the forefront. Well, you're not really talking to the patient anymore.
Yep.
They have now made that their representative, and if that person's that they're not sitting in the room, you're going to really be frustrated. So we will submit, we'll send narratives, we'll do all that stuff, but ultimately at the end, and patients will still be upset that
Yeah.
that something's not covered, but not like we didn't try to help them out.
Yeah. Yeah. So do you think it's more about the doctors and owners getting really clear about how far you want to participate in that
Yeah.
relationship?
Yeah, I do. And I also think it's the culture of the office, right? Like,
Hmm.
how much are you going to do it in terms of the customer service, which is why we continue to submit for patients. We collect co-pays. We don't demand payment at time of service.
Hmm.
We'd like it, but we don't demand it. It's not our method of typically operating.
Hmm.
Um, and it's worked for us. And I don't see it changing. I do see us trying to get a few things more automated. In other words, credit card on file,
Yeah.
bill, and then we don't have to send them anything. We
Beautiful.
kind of statements. We're doing that electronically now. And it's funny. I had a patient who was upset that we had said, well, because they hadn't responded to the last four electronic messages. So we're so, we don't hear from you. We got to take this to collections. And then she got all upset. And so now she's paper bill only. So we will try to meet the patient where they are. So
Yeah. I love
that's
that.
that's what we're doing, right? That doesn't
Yeah.
mean it's right. It doesn't mean it's
Yeah.
wrong,
Yeah.
but that's just how we're finding it in our small town areas that we practice in. That'll still allow us to maintain a personal connection
Hmm.
to our patients and our patient base.
It is this balance. It's a fine balance between this customer service piece and then you know what is running efficiently. So, we have worked hard. I've been doing this for so long. We used to have 44 systems, right? And we come into a practice and we go, hey, everything's going to be great. We're going to get these 44 systems in place. But, life has changed dramatically and nobody has time or space for 44 systems. And so we've really been conscious of leaning that down. Like, what is the 20% of the things that we do? And when I say that, I mean like each procedure and collecting and presenting treatment, all that. What's the 20% of the steps that make the 80% difference in the total picture? And so, you bring up a good point, like the credit card on file. And really, how do you take something like that, which is a big dramatic change for your patients, could be really, first of all, just for you guys, just to think about that piece, right? How do you balance the customer service part with making a change like that? Now, we actually really do. We have a whole system for how to get credit card on file because we recommend it strongly. Because if we can get that handled, then that's one less thing administratively
Yeah.
that gets in the way of the patient
Smoother.
relationship. Right. It's way better.
Smoother.
It's way
Yeah.
better. So, but I think you bring up a good point, which is how, first of all, how do you wrap your head around a change like that? Because that's a big change. And then how do you train your whole team in that change? And then how do you execute it in a way that's consistent to your culture? And so when you think about changes like that, what other changes have you made where it was something like that, but you navigated it? And what do you think were the essentials? Because you have five offices, don't you? It's like
Yes.
that's a lot, right? And
Yeah.
so
Well, yeah, it's a lot. Yeah.
that's a lot. Right? And do you try to get them all on the same kind of
Yes.
thing?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you really get to navigate this because it's like you don't have just one place where you can kind of control things. You have five. So what is it that's effective, when you think about making changes like that? Because that's really, I mean, that's what we do all the time, right? But it really is like starts with the doctor. What do you think has been effective for you to make those changes?
Well, I think the first and foremost thing is your core values
Mm-hmm.
and staying true to who you are at
Yep.
all times.
Yep.
And some people, may resist certain things that you're trying to do, and some people may adapt easier.
Mm-hmm.
And we have all different socioeconomic stratus in our practice. We have from dairy farmers to CEOs to, you know, teachers to custodians to
The
college
gamut.
kids, to,
Mm-hmm.
you name it, right? And a couple of the practices are a little more rural,
Yep.
um, and there it's a little more folksy how things
Mm-hmm.
go. So
Mm-hmm.
some of the technology end things are a little bit slower
Mm-hmm.
adaptation.
Yep.
So we have to have the ability to be flexible,
Mm-hmm.
but yet fair and firm in how we want to implement things. So like we don't want to, well, in this office we do this, and then in this office we do this. No, we do this the same on all offices. So if you got sick and someone sub for you, they should be able to step in and they should be hearing the same voice. Although the words might be different, the same
Yeah.
voice should have the essential message, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to think that. Of course, I could be misled, but I think that's what we try to do, and I do know that those things come up. Like for example, we talked about taking a reservation fee
Mm-hmm.
to hold an appointment because we're seeing a little more
Change.
flaky,
Yep.
in
Yeah.
scheduling stuff. So, and then the one office manager was like, "You get resistance in the other offices," and I, not knowing, I said, I really don't think so. She said, I've had some. So rather than say, well, just do it a different way, let's understand what their concerns are, and let's talk about that concern with those patients. And the second part of it is what we really should do a deeper dive and understand how it's being explained to them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You
Is
know,
say that again? To do what?
to understand how it's being explained to them,
Right.
right? Like if
Right.
if I said to you, "Hey, Melinda, I want you to collect everything in cash from now on," and you were like, "Oh, cash, nobody carries cash," and then you have a patient in front of you, and Mrs. Jones, that's going to be $200, and we only take cash.
Yep.
Versus, just letting you know that, with some of the processing and some of these other fees that have been added, we chose to not do that and not participate in those type of collection processes. So we appreciate if payment is made with cash.
Mm-hmm.
That's a
Mm-hmm.
different conversation. Same message,
Yeah.
but expecting a different answer, right?
Yep.
You're
Exactly.
almost you're almost set up like, well, I'm on my heels. I'm ready to take that left jab, versus
Yep.
understand what's going on here and why. I always think a why is important, why we do
Mm-hmm.
things,
Mm-hmm.
without
Yeah,
making it
exactly.
sound like you know, a 20-minute sales pitch on, a car warranty.
Right, right, right. How do you, well, and that's really about being consistent with your values, whatever your values are. So you have this gamut of offices. I mean, it always is amazing to me because you talked about this, like, here's your expectation of your team members,
Mhm.
and then there's the reality. And so how do you, what, that's a piece of, like, what's the system you guys use, so that, because I think this is really relevant, because it's like, I think doctors all day long think they know how things are getting done,
Mhm.
and in reality it's getting done
Right,
differently,
right.
right? So what are this, I mean, I have some systems that we use to keep people on the same track, but what are those, what are the things that you feel like have worked to keep people on the same, um
Boy, we've tried a lot of different
executing?
things. Yeah,
Yeah,
we've
go
tried a
ahead.
lot of different things. You're going to run this podcast from now on, Melinda. I'm going to tell you right now. Um,
Well, you
the
have a lot of
top,
experience, Sunny, right?
well, our topic today was going to be it will be components of a healthy fee for service practice, but I'll answer your question. It's a little bit of a learning, a work in progress, and part of it is getting to know the people in their positions, giving them their positions, empowering them in their positions, and then reinforcing the message, right?
Yep, yep.
So, and it has to come from an honest place. Don't tell me what I want to hear. Tell me what exactly is going on. So
Mm-hmm.
we have, 20, 30-year employees that the trust factor is, off the charts.
Way
So
high.
you can make, hopefully you're not making a lot of withdrawals in the Stephen Covey system, right? You're making
Mm-hmm.
deposits in the emotional bank accounts, but
Yep.
you can at times also lean and say, well, I don't believe this. And once their radar is up, they can tune into it. And then identifying some people that need help, and then looking at the numbers. For example, if our over-the-counter collections is 60% in every office and one is 40, well, what are we doing differently?
Mm-hmm.
And then how are we addressing this? And how can we, if you need some support, how can we support you?
Yep.
Maybe it's an office that's short staffed presently, or someone's out maternity, which every other week is somebody. So it's trying to identify that, and that the hard core is when you really got to crack that nut and get down to that inner core of what it is. That's sometimes hard to get to, and I think the only way you can do that is you've got to have an honest assessment and an honest answer, and then you got to role play. You got to
Mm-hmm.
put people in
Mm-hmm.
positions. Say, okay, give me a scenario, give me a patient. Let's make it real. Let's talk this through. Maureen, how would you handle it? Shelly, how would you handle it? Chrissy, how would you handle it? Nadine, who's relatively new in her role, Nadine, how would you handle this? And I think that's helpful. So what we do is we have smaller meetings once a week with the key office administrative people. And I know we have an agenda. I'm not at them.
No.
Our operations manager has been. So it's kind of following through on some of those many things, but it's just an effort to knock it down to a small number, get the people to talk about some of the things or challenges they see, and then to be able to cut them loose and with the freedom and autonomy, and then support to do the job what we would like to see done.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
how.
Yeah, I think, well, and it is, as we talk, really, we're talking about those components
Right.
of a successful practice, aren't we? Like, starting with your values.
Right.
And, I mean, there's one thing about identifying your values, there's a whole nother thing about living your values. So when
Yeah.
you talk about authentic conversations, that's some piece of your values saying, we don't want to just turn our team loose to talk about credit card on file until we're clear they've been trained in a way that they can pull it off,
Mhm.
that's consistent with being authentic with people, which is some part of your values, right? That
Right. And working with their learning systems, right?
right.
Some people, they need to see it written out. Some
Yep.
people need to see it and watch it on video. Some people need to play it out, right? Some people need both.
Yep.
And it's, you know, so the personality profile comes in here, comes into play a little bit,
Sure.
um, with our certainly our higher level folks. And then we've got a number of other team members that have had the personality profile. And it helps just it's not pigeonholing anybody, but it's allowing us to communicate better
Yep.
and effectively, right? Like for me, I really don't want, when I have a conversation, I don't want 8,000 different details. I want you to get to the cut to the chase. It's my communication style,
Yeah, right.
right? Like
Don't
when
give
you
me a
call me,
story.
yeah, and you're calling me to tell me that a patient called about something, get to the cut to the chase, you
Yep.
know?
Yep.
And that's very helpful, right? So, and
Yeah.
some of the people who it's not their natural communication style can adapt when they communicate with me. And I try to, notice I said try to, I try to adapt to their styles as well. Because I know
Yeah.
that some of my team is they're high C's. I need to know point one, I need to know point two, point three,
Yep.
point four, point
Yep.
five, and it needs to be black and white.
Yep.
I don't do well in gray. Well,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I'm going to put a lot of gray out there because that's the reality of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to try to respect that and be sure that I at least explain to you how we went from A to F,
Yep.
and I will hit B, C, D, E, but I'm going to probably go A to D to F, you
Yep.
know, just in practical terms. But I do try to recognize that, and that makes communication more effective.
Way more effective. Well, because you have been at this and you have 5 practices and you value that there is similarity, right? You value that because, as a business, so when we talk about the components of an effective practice, it really is that there is a management system underneath the practice. So it's not just we do
Right.
crowns and fillings and answer calls and we take good care of patients. There is a management system. And so what I love about what you're saying is you do have key numbers, key statistics that you watch,
Mhm.
that you see, and you watch them for all the practices. And when something is under or over, you are addressing it. And so that piece is the beginning of the management part, right? Having values creates culture, and having a management system underneath you is what creates consistency
Right.
in productivity. And it's probably what, I mean, you could probably talk about when you bought those first couple practices, how it made you crazy that they were different. I mean,
Mhm.
if you did you work in both practices?
Oh yeah.
So you're like, okay, this can't go on. We got to figure out how to make this the same so that we can share staff and we can share systems, and I know where things are from one practice to another. So I love that piece. Of course, that's kind of where my world is in the management part. I've been, I was a dental assistant to start with, but really my zone is that management system. I love that part, and making the practice as a practice better. And part of how you do that is you have a management system. I love that you talked about weekly meetings. So certain factions meet
Yeah.
weekly, probably certain factions meet monthly, some factions meet daily, right?
Going out of network can be really scary, but staying in network can be even scarier and riskier too long term. Insurance reimbursements aren't even keeping pace with inflation, which can really affect the quality of your work, not to mention the quality of your life. I'm Allison Bernstein.
I'm Dr. Josh Bernstein. We went out of network over 20 years ago, and we can show you what worked, what didn't, and how you can do it with minimal risk.
ThriveOutOfNetwork.com teaches you everything you need to know, including the most important part, which is getting your team on board. It teaches them how to communicate with patients and getting them comfortable with the entire process.
Go to ThriveOutOfNetwork.com and check it out today. That's ThriveOutOfNetwork.com.
Yeah, you
Thanks.
have to break it down. I mean, in essence, right? We're at 60, I don't know. We're at a lot of employees. Let's just say a lot. And some people are absolutely not comfortable speaking to 20 or 30 people. But if you break
Right.
down hygienists, if you break down dental assistants, if you break
Yeah.
down your business admin team, and then if you break it down in offices, you can get to smaller numbers. So
Yep.
you need to have some management style or system in place, not style, but yeah, just
A
structure.
system, probably a
Right.
system
Yeah, you need
for each
structure.
department. You need
Correct.
structure.
And you got to be able to, okay, if you're not comfortable taking it to me, this is the person that you take it to. And
Mm-hmm.
here's how we'll get the information. Now we have an intranet, which is employees only. So we put out information there. Some people check it every day. Some people like me don't check it very often. So the information we're trying to use as many channels as we can, because if you really want feedback, if you really want to value your team and have them have a voice
Yep. Yep.
in their practice, then you have to have a two-way communication setup. So
You really do. And you have to have different ways to make that happen.
correct.
When you're at 60, it really is hard to keep everybody at, or plus 60 plus, whatever it is, 5 offices even. It's hard to keep everybody on the same page.
Mhm.
And so, these are like all the different devices or systems you have for keeping people on the same page. Now, when I think about that, even a solo practitioner, even at 4 team members,
Right.
they really get to think about that really at that level, right? Because it's the same thing. How do what do people need to achieve every day? That's a component. It's important that every team member knows what they are there to achieve each day. Not, what are the 50 steps you do to do an amalgam fill or a composite filling. That has to get done. But like, what are the 2 or 3 things that are most important for each team member?
Mhm.
And how do they know that they've done it? Right, which is
Yeah.
a tracking mechanism. And then I love the idea of onboarding based on style, because that's the other piece you're talking about, is how do you even understand the style that you hired. We hire for experience typically, right, in dentistry, because we don't really have a whole lot of time or training system. Now with 5 offices, you probably have a training system. Do you have
Yeah,
like a
we have
training?
to, because we generally don't hire experience. The only time we are hiring experience seems to be a little bit in the hygiene area,
Mm-hmm.
because the hygienist may be relocating or come in or have that degree, versus the dental assistant in New York State. There's different pathways to get licensed. So yeah, we have that. And then our front desk, our business administration area, Chrissy and Maureen did a all knockout job on a tremendous, you know, training manual. So that's one thing that we do spend a lot of time on, do that. But what's funny is, and you could probably shoot me for this, I do not lead by numbers. I don't really pay attention. I am such a visceral person that, if I just I kind of like to have, and I work in every single one of these offices every week. So
Yep.
I'd like to have a finger on it, and to have
Yep.
a feel, because everyone has a little different vibe, and
Yep.
to be
So
interacting
what
with people
so what do
in
you
their
do to
vibe.
have a finger on it?
Well, you just you have your ear out all the time. You
Uh-huh.
talk to the
Uh-huh.
team members who maybe spend more time in that office, and get a feel of the patience, the flow. And what's really an interesting, and one of the greatest compliments is, there may be a patient that wants to see just me, and they
Yeah.
may go to a different office. And I someone the other day says, "Well, I've been to almost every one. I've been all 4 of them. I haven't been all 5 yet." And the interesting thing is that they'll feel like, I don't know what it is, but at every office, there's laughter. People are smiling. It's a happy environment,
Nice.
and like
Well, what do
that's
you think you've done to make that happen? Because that's culture.
probably just stayed out of the way. You know, but I think it's you got to enjoy it, right? You, as the head guy or head person, or one of them, because now I have partners,
Mhm.
you have to set that tone. Like,
Yeah.
the environment, the laughter, the joking has to be, has to be encouraged, but also has to be, acceptable and encouraged. And patients pick up on it. It's funny how they do,
Oh,
especially the ones
totally.
that don't speak or say a word. and they stare at the ceiling, and they just, they're petrified, and
Uh-huh.
they feel more comfortable because you look confident and comfortable yourself. So helps set them at ease to a certain extent. So it's just nice. It was one of those things that happened the other day, and I was like, oh, that's nice to hear.
Is one of your values fun, or like what of your values, what word do you think captures that piece? Do you think
Hmm.
you think you capture it?
Well, I think there's a couple parts. One, I think, is our team is our family. I
Hmm.
think that's that. And in my family, everybody busts everybody's chops. My daughter's a stand-up comedian, for Pete's sake. So, there's definitely, you know, we went to there's it's just our family group text is sometimes out of control. But there was a boy that my youngest daughter, had dated, and he has this beard, and it's sort of an Amish Abe Lincoln looking beard.
Uh-huh.
And so she sends a picture to the family chat. And of course, my son writes back, tell him not to go to the theater. And I lost it. Like, I'm laughing out loud. So I think that
Helps.
environment, the
Yeah.
laughter part is downplayed too much.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's
Well,
not goofing around. It's just enjoying yourself.
Well, I mean, I love it that that's part of your culture, because I have had clients say, that they're messing around too much, they're visiting too much, they're this or that too much, and I mean, I love it that I mean, I think that's probably personal. It comes with some, ability to make things funny and to be okay with that. Like that's part of how you want to operate, you know. And
Well,
so you
one thing you don't want to do, though, one thing you don't want to do, if you and I are working, we have a patient, you and I are not having a conversation that the patient's not a part of, right? We're
That's
not
right.
talking over them.
That's
So
right.
we might say, hey, you like music because music is playing. Yeah, I like music. Okay. Remember when you were a kid and you were trying to date this person, and you would put these songs together? This song was on my first makeout tape. And they may participate in the conversation, they may not, but they are part of it, right?
Yep.
They're
Yep.
not interrupting our little soiree, right?
No, no,
And so
no.
that's essential. And I have other docs. I mean, they have their own style and the assistants, and it's really funny. It's funny to kind of see them operate. Like yesterday, I took off the tag off of a headrest, and it was like, this is, unlawful. So I was like, oh no, I'm going to get arrested. I was like, Renee, hold on to that. So she was holding the tag all day. I was like, I was just kidding. And, and we got a little charge out of that for a little while,
Yeah.
but it was funny. And then she'll bring it up for the next couple of weeks. I still have that tag.
Well, it's cool that you're having fun at work. That's super cool. I mean, it is part of who you are, right? So I
Spend a lot of
think,
time there. Might as well
you're
enjoy
right.
yourself.
It's a lot of time. And probably also you've done something to pick out 4 other doctors that share that share that desire
Mhm.
in some way. Maybe different manifests different than it manifests for you. And I think when we think about, for other doctors, it's not that they try to act funny when they're not funny, because it's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is like bringing your vibe, who you are,
Right.
bringing that to work,
It's just
and
authentic. Yeah, you got to be
being
authentic.
authentic and
Mhm.
having it is fun to have some fun. It is helpful to have some fun, that piece of it. And so, I mean, I think dentistry, I think as in dentistry, we come with liking people essentially. I
Mhm.
think it's essential. I think it's an essential. Now, we have some people that stand out that come into dentistry that don't like people and they don't do that well,
Right.
but as a rule, I think we care about people and we want to serve.
Right.
And that's what attracts us to the profession. And if it's not part of who we are, we don't stay. But, so it's when I think about that, it's like, how do you bring that to work? Um, and I do think, now this is my business part, right? I do think, and I hear you saying there is also underneath that, you guys do know you have some expectations. You have some expectations of
Yes.
the team members. They know what their expectations are. You've set out a pathway, and there's a pathway for them to deliver on those expectations, right? They know that they're going to be held accountable to those expectations. They get support around that, and that shows up in those weekly, monthly, daily meetings. Is that fair?
Mm-hmm.
So, it's like kind of probably wasn't first on your radar. So tell me how you've bridged that where there's structure and it's still fun.
Well, it's really the structure is the patient care, right?
Yeah.
Like we're not compromising. So if there's a scan that's taken and just take a crown and bridge procedure. Well, a crown and bridge procedure is heavily team dependent.
Yeah.
You know, I could be involved in a 7 to 8 minutes of an hour appointment for the typical crown that we're single crown we're going to take care of.
Yep.
So that also means that assistant, in this case, dental assistant, has to operate independently. The conversation, whatever that got started, they can continue, they can go in a different direction. And they've already established, that personalized conversation with that patient.
Yep.
And then, I can chime in from afar if need be or something and, what have you. But there's a standard of care, right?
Yeah.
So if you have a scan and there's smudge all over the place and we're looking at it, okay, we got to go back over these areas. Let me do it. I can do it. Okay, we'll rescan it. We'll check it again. So, there's certain things that are just non-negotiables, right?
Yep.
And it's not, like it's the enjoyment or the laughter part is really just an expression of your personality.
Yeah.
The other part is an expression of your professionalism, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think you can have both.
Yeah. 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 So that's where kind of the structure shows up, right? And whether it's the procedure at chairside or all the admin pieces that go with that procedure, because it's fair to say there's as many probably admin components
Sure.
to it as there are the dental components. And what I also hear you saying is you don't compromise on those details.
Right. You can't.
You
It
can't
bites you in the
compromise.
nose. Yeah, you can't.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can't. You
So
have to go home every day and you have to say to yourself, we did the absolute best we could in every scenario.
yeah. Yeah.
Like,
Exactly.
the one we had a patient come in and it was 7 a.m. And so I started seeing patients at 7. I had 3 patients at 7. And I have 3 dental assistants at 7. Then I had another patient who I've never seen in my life that I can remember, but she came in and there was 2 hygiene patients and there was three hygienists that morning. I think we had 2 at 7, 1 at 3 at 8. So it was a busy start to the day. And this patient walked in and she was a little bit swollen. And the story goes that she wanted to be seen. And so my assistant had seen her there as she was seating her patient. She was like, "Can I help you?" Like, yeah, I mean, I'm swollen here. And then she asked her a few questions. I'm having trouble swallowing. So she comes to, that she wants to see me. And I was like, okay, I can't do it right this second, but what is the symptoms? I said, oh, that's a medical emergency. She's got to go to the emergency room. So she told her, not good enough. Told her a second time, not good enough. Still wanted to see me. So she came out. She really wants to see you. So okay. Well, I went out and I talked to her and I just said, you have to address this now. If you want an ambulance, I'll get you one. But this is a medical problem. It's not a dental problem. Well, it turns out we haven't seen this woman in 15 years and we only saw her once. Right? But I didn't
Wow.
even know her name. I didn't know the circuit. I just knew that her problem was not for us. Now, if it was, I would have said, don't worry, we will get you in. Don't worry, we'll see you. Okay. But I knew it was a medical problem. So long story short, they ended up airlifting her to Albany, which is a 2-hour drive. So probably a 65-minute, helicopter ride. She gets them in. They said, you were an hour or 2 away from dying. So we did the right thing. But the point was to me was my dental assistant acted 100% appropriately within the scope and did everything right. And we needed to recognize that and have that
Yeah.
conversation the following week once we found out,
Yeah.
the whole scenario. So that ability to do that is just another reinforcement of do the right thing. So that's
Mm-hmm.
one of our core values, do
Mm-hmm.
the right thing, which
Mm-hmm.
is
Mm-hmm.
integrity, but I think it's more important. That's to me is do the right thing.
Yeah, it's more specific than
Yeah.
integrity. It's more
You know,
specific. Yeah. Yeah.
so
And
if the crown's not seated, it's not right, do the right thing.
yeah, yeah,
Right?
yeah,
Something's
that's
not right, the patient not this, you don't have the time. Well, you make the time, do the right thing. So
yeah, yeah. And what you're getting at is a guidebook, using your values as a guidebook. So all your team members know what to do in a moment, as long as they're consistent with that, right? That they know that that's their anchor point. I think doctors learn by other stories. You and I talked about this, hearing other stories. So when somebody's not performing, I mean, you have some really good structure. You have an operations manager. You probably have a lead person in each office,
yeah,
like an traditional
the
office
lead
manager,
assistant, yeah, yeah.
and
The
then a
office
lead for
manager,
each
yeah.
department, right? So you actually have these leadership roles established, and that's what happens when you get bigger. Is you have to do that, otherwise it falls apart at the seams. So when somebody's not doing well, because this happens to doctors every day, somebody's not doing well and they're not doing what they were trained to do or you asked them to do, what what are some ways to handle that?
Well, I would ask you the same question.
We can both we'll do a dueling banjo on this.
What are some ways to handle it? Well, first things first, identify it, right?
Yep.
This is struggling. Let's talk about it. What do you see? Well, I'm not getting, if you get some honest answers, well, I don't understand how these parts work or whatever it might be. Now, what can help you, right? What kind of coaching do we need to apply in that scenario? Do
Mm-hmm.
you need a little more training? Do you need a little more support? Uh, do you need a little more practice with this? Do you want to watch someone else, operate in this arena? What is it? Uh, or in certain scenarios, maybe we have the wrong person in the wrong job. Maybe
Yep.
they
Yep.
are outside of their skill set. The
Yep.
Peter principle, right? They rose
Yep.
above where they were comfortable with because they were great at one thing. Doesn't mean they'll be great at the management position or the leadership position. So that's the hardest one. The hardest one is when that person is I can't do this, because when they go back to their job, they look at that as a demotion, and it's very hard, and we lose a lot of people when that happens.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
We had one person, she applied for the operations manager job, she didn't get it, and what she did, because we just talked to her 6 months now after the fact, and we have seen her blossom like an incredible meteor, comet, phenomenal
Awesome.
in every way, shape, or form. So she said, well, I took it. I know, I look at it now as like I wasn't the right person for that job at that time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I
Mm-hmm.
went to work on myself, and I did a bunch of things. I said, I've known her. She's worked for me for 25 years. I said, you
Wow.
just are an incredible person right now. Like you have just like unlocked the door, and the whole world's on the other side. And
Wow.
it was a good conversation. And she took that the right way, whereas I think other people would have been like, well, I didn't get this, so therefore there's no place for me to go in this organization.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's hard. So what would
It
you do?
is it is hard. Yeah, I mean, I love it that she's been with you 25 years and she took that to grow. I
Yeah.
call that a continuous improvement environment that is generated by the doctors, by the owners, and the leadership team. So, I'm going to take probably more of a business clinical, that
Yeah.
the business side, which is you talked about this right person, right seat, that it's the first question, is this the right person for the right seat? And hopefully we get that right when we start, but it is the question, is this the right person for the right seat? Are the expectations clear? And so you talked about your manual, and I call it a performance agreement, and we skinny that performance agreement up, so it's like, what are their most important things that they are here to achieve to get to our goals? And so where are they struggling and what is it that they need, right? And we would I mean, similar to you, it's like, okay, how do we what is it that they need from us, and what is it that they need to provide? And I think the way we get there is more like, when they're not able to perform at their level, they're not achieving their numbers. And so it does sound like it's numbers, but it is this management piece, right? So we have culture, process, people. So we think about it like that culture,
Right.
the culture is the glue. We've talked a lot about culture today, and you can see, I hope that your listeners can hear what you've done to build your culture, because you guys have a really strong culture. That is, it really helps, really helps to help people perform at their best, and to create a really satisfying environment that makes you want to work as a doctor and owner, and that makes the other people want to work. I mean, we're always looking at, how do we create a place that lifts people up to be their best? Culture is one of those ways. Right person in the right seat is another piece, right? You talk about assessments. So there's a variety of different assessments, so we can get to know if the person's in the right spot. And then, really, do they need training? Do they need their own development? What do they need? And so, I mean, I think that's the approach. What I would say is, for your doctors listening, the office manager, we feel like the office manager, or we call them team leads, are essential for moving things forward. So if you want your team to thrive and survive and be great, we need leadership besides just the doctor. It's
Mm-hmm.
essential. And you've done this beautiful job building out your leadership team. You have an ops manager, which for your size is, you need somebody who manages the five, and
Mm-hmm.
then one person one lead in each office, that's the lead, and then leads for each department. That's beautiful, because now you aren't actually holding those people accountable. Your leads are. Is that fair?
Mm-hmm.
And so you have a much better idea of where you stand at any time. You're just actually leading the leaders. Is that fair?
Mm-hmm.
And so,
Yeah, my
uh,
job is to like help create the vision, right, and the direction, and kind of I'm gonna call it the big picture stuff.
yep,
My wife likes to call it, you're just flat out lazy, but I kind of, I'm a big picture guy.
it's your job.
I
It's your
can't be
job.
bothered with picking up clothes on the floor and
Yeah,
all those things. I use it as my greatest excuse. But in the office, yeah, that's my role, right? That's my role.
it
Are we
is your
in
role.
this direction? Are we going to start using this technology? What do we think about these products? How do we incorporate that? Where do we see, progressive dental in 2 years, 3 years, 5 years? How are we going to grow this
Beautiful.
pie, et cetera? So that's my primary role.
I love that. And really, I just hope that the doctors listening listen for those components, because we've talked about really the essential components of having a really well-run practice, which easily can be fee for service, because it's really about the essentials of the practice, and it's a well-run business, and I just love that you have done this great job over the 20 years that you've been practicing, what is longer probably, um, building this beautiful organization that can be fun and exciting and inviting. You are having fun and you're thriving.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
you're embodying some really good essentials.
Well, thank you.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you. I think if you don't believe it, right, you can't fake it.
That's right. That's right.
And I see so many comments with so many dentists like, I really don't like this. I want to get out and stuff. And I always kind of go, what'd you go into it for? And your
Yeah.
point before, you here to help people? Well, then help people.
Yeah. Yeah.
and then are you scratching your itch, right? Like, let's
That's it.
say, you got to make X amount. All right, so if you can make sure that your basic needs are met, and I
Hmm.
think that the money is really just a byproduct of doing everything else the right way,
Yes.
and the money kind of will find itself to you. But if you're doing it because of the money, you're going to really focus on all the
It's
hiccups and
it's
the
it's
hardships.
such a good point, right? It's such a good point because I think it's where doctors start is like, how much do I want to make?
Right.
But really, it's really starts with the vision. Why are
Mhm.
you doing what you're doing? And I think you're talking about that dissatisfaction. I think that's because they ran up against some obstacles and they don't know how to solve them. And it really is. I mean, you're a great example of you solve what's in front of you and build some structure and create a great culture, and you have a beautiful career.
Thank you.
You're
I think you
welcome.
gotta. I learned this from a basketball coach too. You gotta be where your feet are, right?
Yeah,
Got to be
yeah,
present in the
you got to
moment.
be. That's right.
And
That's
the
right.
other thing, I think, like, okay, so let's take that example. All right, if you're financially okay, what do you? I love doing. What, missionary work. Go do some
Yeah,
free.
beautiful.
Take some trips and do some free dental work, and make that part of your soul, right?
Yeah.
And for me, I like working with kids. I like coaching sports. I do that on the side a lot. I've been a varsity coach for 9 years, and I've been a basketball coach for 36 almost consecutive years
Wow. That's a
since I
long time.
graduated. It's just
Well,
fun. I like it and get to know the kids. And now I'll take a couple kids, work them out, and I'll get to know and I'll talk to them about, hey, what are you trying to get to? You know, here's some things that I see are sorely lacking, and you got to spend time on these things. Or you can't put chandeliers in the house unless you have a good foundation.
that's right.
So those are the kind of things that help me feel better,
Yeah. Yeah.
about it. And then the dentistry is just another component.
Yeah.
But I have
Beautiful.
that, and then I also have a really good, tremendous foundation of dentists that are friends of mine, partly through the
Mm,
podcast and partly just through different things that I can speak to and talk to, bounce things off, and get that dose of reality. Because, like you said, in a fee for service world or in a regular practice, and you have those hardships, you may say, "Well, I better just start taking insurance, or I don't know." And first is saying, "Well, no, this is normal. These things happen. There's a little bubble here. Ride it out.
yep.
What are you?" And in my
Beautiful.
case, what are your numbers? Because I don't look at those, right? I
Yep.
kind of more focus on, geez, I didn't seem that busy this week, or
Yep.
seemed like there was a lot of last minute cancellations, and just it's kind of a texture feel thing. So
Yep. Yeah. Because that's how you operate. But I bet
correct.
your leaders have KPIs. They have things that they're
Oh, they're
watching.
they're
You
they're
bet.
a little
You
more.
bet.
Yep.
You do it different, but that's not your job. Your job is to do the dentistry and help the leaders,
Right.
right? Yeah, beautiful. Well, Sonny, I love that you're like kind of summing it up, which is there's a vision, but there's also what you do in your private life. Make
Yeah.
sure that there's something that feeds you, and then
You got to
have
have
a
a balance.
community. What's that?
Got to have a balance in there.
You got to have a balance. And I love it that you've surrounded yourself with dentists because I think it helps. I
Mhm.
think it helps. I think it helps when, we have this perfecting. I mean, ours is the highest suicide rate. Well, because it's this perfecting industry. And so, get yourself around friends so that you can, it's like you're as good as the five people you surround yourself with. Surround yourself with some awesome dentists, and so that you can go the distance.
Yeah, I mean, you think you're the only person that made a denture that didn't have a good flange, you know,
That's
and the
right.
patient was whining from day one, or they have an occlusion, they bite on only, they only bite on number 2 and 31, and everything's fine. And then the other person with the occlusion's perfect, and you just can't get it one more spot. Like, those things, those happen. Those are
They do.
unfortunately, they're par for the course.
They are par for the course. They
Yeah.
are. Well, thank you, Sunny, for your time. Really appreciate it.
Me too. Appreciate it. I have your bio. If people want to get in touch with you,
Yeah.
You want
Yeah.
to just send me that information too, and I'll
Yeah,
put it
it's
in the
really
show notes,
easy.
but
It's just
share it.
my name. It's just my name. It's Melinda at melindahereford.com. So it's really easy. So I'll send it to you, Sunny, so you can put it with the podcast. And, as a gift, I have a, a, like an exam. It's like an exam that shows you where your practice is and what's possible. So for any of your doctors, that's a gift that is available to them, and they can see kind of where are all the opportunities that they can step into. So that's a complimentary gift to your
Sure.
constituency, and it's
So what do they
easy.
do? They email you and get
Yeah,
that, or
yeah,
call you,
they
or
can.
what?
Yeah, they can email me at melindahereford.com and just ask for the exam, Melinda's exam, and I'll get them started on that. It's wonderful. It allows them to see, oh wow, there's all this possibility. So it's a beautiful thing, and it's complimentary to them.
Fantastic. Send that to me. I'll include that in the show notes.
You
Now,
bet.
since it's your first time, I got to ask you a question now. This has
Yeah.
nothing to do with dentistry,
Okay.
right? If you could go back in time, anytime, place, where, do anything with anyone, anything, it's wide open.
Yeah.
Where would you go and why?
Wow, that's great. Well, the first place that showed up for me, just as you asked that question, would be like Greece or Europe or someplace like that. And, why would I go there? I guess the thing that draws me to places that I've never been is that it is a way for me to see who I am inside of the whole big world
Mhm.
and learn more about myself, and bring that into expression more fully. So I'm a constant learner. I love learning, and so I think that's really, it's like someplace where I can be exposed to something that I don't know and learn it. You know,
Oh, fantastic. And it has to be the first thought that comes in your mind. I
it
appreciate
it was it was it was like,
that.
okay, this is it.
So you're going back to the start of civilization. There you go.
I know, isn't that
That
cool?
was great. That was very cool. Well, thank you, Melinda. I
You're
appreciate your
welcome.
time. I really fun conversation.
My
I
pleasure.
didn't expect that it would be focused so much, but truth be told, right? You were using my example, right, to
Yes.
to highlight what we were talking about initially,
Yeah.
which is the components of a healthy fee-for-service practice, right? And then some of those things, right? We talked that were really important: your culture, your values, right? Having the right
Vision.
people, the
Yep.
right person in the right seat. So, if we were to do this as a quote unquote PowerPoint lecture, like those might be our bullet points, but we
For
kind of
sure. For
kind of
sure.
did it in more of a
We knocked
colloquial.
off the big ones, Sonny. We
Yeah.
did. We knocked off the big ones: vision, values, culture, people in the right spot, process, and management, right? Like, how do you manage all this stuff? So we definitely knocked off the big ones, and you are just a beautiful living example of having this in your 5 practices. So well done.
Well, thank you, thank you.
You're
We
welcome.
should circle back like in a few months and reconnect and talk a little bit further about some more of the dig a little deeper.
I'd love that. I'd love that. That'd be awesome.
Okay,
Thank you,
so please
Sonny.
please reach out. Let's do it. Okay.
Okay, sounds good. I will, definitely.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sonny.
Take care. My
You too.
pleasure.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to the Fee for Service Dentist Podcast. If you would like to share your fee for service story, please fill out our contact form at ffsdentistry.com. Also, be sure to join our Fee for Service Dentistry Facebook group. For help starting your dental membership plan, visit dentalmembershipdirect.com and membershipmastercourse.com. Finally, for help with in-house financing, visit dentalfinancingdirect.com. And don't forget, your story is what you make of it. This is your name on the door and your reputation on the line. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next time.
This has been a Rogue Media Network production.